Hello everyone. It is Jackie with Pocket of Preschool. I'm super duper excited you're here. What is this science pack? So science, here's what it looks like. So this is a big bundle. It's going to be a big bundle. So this is the first part, and honestly, this pack is about being a scientist. It's got tons of like charts and like science mats you can use. So you could use this pack for so many things. Like if you're doing shells, you could use this. If you're learning about rocks, you could use this. If you're just doing nature or fall or spring. So this pack is super versatile. You can use it all year long, honestly, and just add different props to it and just change out different pieces. Or you can grab the bundle and then you can get all the different packs. And let me tell you all the science units that will be part of the curriculum. So there'll be 5 senses, building, trash and recycling, pumpkins, apples, me and my body, balls, because I know some people do a ball theme and they need some science for that. It'll probably be more of like a force in motion pack. And there'll be ice, and then ramps, magnets, pet fish, rocks, colors, plants, shells, butterflies, insects, simple machines, weather, space, and then I'm gonna add 5 more surprise packs. And those surprise packs, I'm gonna decide, I know you guys are gonna be giving me feedback this whole year that I'm creating it. So whatever packs you think that we're missing, those are the packs that I'll make. Maybe you guys want seasons or something like that. Or maybe we teach during the year and we find something that we need, that's what I'll make. So I have kind of like a little leeway, that way I can make extra stuff if we need to. So they'll all be sold individually and in the bundle. So let me jump in and tell you all about the Being a Scientist pack. So as always with me, you get labels. So there's different labels. I'm gonna store it all in one of these iris containers from Michael's, and then there'll be little labels that come with it. And then I put all my teacher pages on a book ring. I know some people like to use binders, and I just use the front cover for the front, and you can also use that for your binder cover if you're a binder girl. And then what you will see is I have tons of teacher pages that'll help. So some of the ways that you can use this pack to do science, my main way is to set up a science table in your classroom. So if you'll see behind me, let me move a little bit better. There is my science table, and this is what it's gonna look like for the first day of school. So take that back. This is not what it will look like the first day, because I will not have these charts up, because we will make those as a class during either circle time or maybe during a science talk. So my science table will look like this, and then we'll make the charts together as a team, because if you make your charts with your kiddos, they will notice them more, they will pay attention to them more, and they'll have some kind of context to know kind of what they're about and why they're on the wall, because we want to include kiddos in making the things that are on our walls, right? So you can, one way to use this pack is to set up amazing science tables, because we all know the classroom is our kiddos' third teacher, because we can't be with all the kiddos at once, so we need to set up an amazing environment, and this pack will let you do that. You can also do a read aloud and then do a connecting activity. So maybe you read, there's also an included book, like an I Am a Scientist book, and this I just printed off smaller. You can print it off bigger. And I do have directions in there on how you can print stuff off big and small, because I know some of us don't have big classrooms, and maybe your science table is like half that size, so just print everything off smaller, and then everything will fit. Or maybe you only have a bookshelf, and you can totally use a bookshelf for this. Just take the activities and just put them on your shelf. No big deal. So maybe you're gonna do a read aloud, I Am a Scientist, and it talks about all the things you do as a scientist. How fun is that, right? And it talks about, it uses all those great science words. It's basically all of these words put into a book. That way you can have talking points about them, and they can have pictures, and you guys can explore them. So it's ask questions and predict. So maybe I would read this science I Am a Scientist book for Circle, and then we make a chart about it together. And you can cut out the pieces, you can have kiddos cut out the pieces, and they can help you make the chart. It's totally up to you. All right, so you can make your science table or your science bookshelf, and then you can do your read alouds with connecting activities, and then you can have science talks. So I know a lot of people do math talks or like a morning message talk. Well, instead of having it be about, you know, your message of the day, or maybe your math talk is about counting, why not make your math talk, make a talk about science? So literally go to Circle and just talk about science. Maybe you're working on measuring and you're talking about all the different tools you can use to measure. You can use bears and tape measures and links and chains. Maybe you're using rainbow rulers. Like it's, so have a science talk and put all of the measuring tools that scientists use in the middle, put the scales out, and then once you have it all in the middle, talk about all those things. But yeah, so have a science talk. Or maybe you're doing one of the mini experiments in here. So I have these mini experiment cards, and you can just put them on the science table. But maybe somebody discovered something amazing and they want to show it off. So take, instead of doing a circle time, do a science talk and bring the materials over there. Have the kiddos set up the experiment, and the kiddos, no, it's not backwards, yay. And the kiddos can show off what they're doing. They can talk to each other, and you can explore science that way because they learn so much from each other, more from each other than they do us, right? And then shout outs. So another way I teach science is by doing shout outs. So let's say there's some kiddos back here at the science table, and maybe they're using a magnifying glass and they have found something amazing on this seashell. I stop center time and I call all the kids over and I say, oh my gosh, Susan has discovered something amazing about this shell. The whole class comes over. Susan shows this thing on the shell she found or noticed, and then everybody goes back, and then it's easy peasy. Now it does take a little bit of training with your kiddos to learn. You just come over really quick and then you go back, and when you come over to the center, you don't play with the other things. You listen for like a minute and then you're done. So it takes literally 1 or 2 minutes. We do that a lot in the block center as well when we do STEM. If somebody builds something amazing, we call the class over, they show them, we point out something about the design, and then they go back. And if a kiddo doesn't want to come over, they don't have to. If they're super engaged in play and during center time and they don't want to come over, that's totally fine. They can just say no thank you, because that's totally okay in my classroom. And if they're saying no thank you to be mean, we figure that out, because that's a whole different can of worms, because that's some fun social things going on. So, and you can also do shout outs at the end of center time. Maybe you don't want to stop everybody from playing during center time. You can right before cleanup say, we're gonna clean up in just 1 second, but everybody, let's come over to Discovery, and I want to show you what Susan figured out about this seashell. So you can do it that way too. But they learn so much more by verbalizing their thinking, because that's tricky, right? Verbalize their thinking, and they're showing it off, and then they're learning from each other, which is awesome. Collaboration, right? We gotta teach kiddos to collaborate, because otherwise they're gonna grow up in the world and not know how to work with each other, which we don't want that, because our world is full of that right now. We need to create nice, happy, caring kiddos. So somebody asked a question about what age group is this geared for, and this is geared for preschool. You can do it with toddler a little bit too. You'll just have to take it down a notch, but you guys were used to that. For mostly preschool, pre-K, TK, all the Ks, and then kinder. All right, so those are the different ways to teach it. Teach using all the things included. So let me show you some of the pieces that are in it. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, there are tons of ideas on how to set up your center. I included tons of pictures on how to set up different science tables for different things. All right, so let me show you all the pieces. So there are this parts of a scientist chart, which you can see behind me. I'm gonna pull it off. So I normally put these on with, I didn't staple them on the wall, so that way I could show you guys. But this is the parts of a scientist chart, so you'll get all of these pieces. And then during Circle, after you read a science book, maybe you read the Being a Scientist, or maybe you read a book about, maybe you read, I don't know, maybe you read science tools or whatever, whatever science book you guys like. And then you guys can do this chart with your students. Because when you do it with, again, do it with your kids. Don't just do it and put it on the wall because it'll be wallpaper to them. It won't have any meaning. So put the things on and then have the kiddos talk about each thing. And it's really a chart on your 5 senses. Plus I added tools because scientists have to use tools to learn. And I added your brain because your brain is in charge of all the thinking power. So we want them to know that scientists are thinking and they're using their brain and they're questioning and they're noticing and they're talking. And on the mouth card, I do have things like explain and talk and communicate and share and taste. If you have kiddos that eat things, it's a great time to talk about how we only eat food. We don't eat the seashells or things like that. So if you want to leave off taste, that's okay. Because most of the time, scientists are not tasting their experiments, let's be honest. And then there are many parts of a scientist chart you can just plop in your center too. And again, you can print all the pieces on that anchor chart smaller. You can print these smaller if you have a smaller center. And it's super easy to do. There's directions on the first page with visuals how to do it in Adobe. You literally go to the printer. When you go to print, you select multiple, and then you can do like 2 to a page, 4 to a page, 5 to a page, however you want. So the parts of a scientist are included in there. So in the packs, there is the I Am a Scientist, and then there is the I Am a Scientist book that you can use as a read aloud. That way you don't have to go out and buy a book. And all of the science packs will have a read aloud in them. That way you are guaranteed to have at least one book on that topic that is preschool friendly, because we all know some of these science books that we try and find are not preschool friendly. They're just a little bit too high for us. So there are also these science cards that talk about all the different things scientists do, like compare and experiment and observe, use my senses, examine, measure, sort, share their findings, because that's important, right? We want them talking about what they're doing. Record data, count, and ask questions. And you can put them on a book ring, and you can have them out all year and like put them on like a command hook in your center. You can print them off as cards and make them a bulletin board. You can see I printed these cards off smaller, and I put them on a chart up here. And like I said, I will make these charts again with my kiddos. So that will not be up on the first day. And I'll tell you a trick. If you make some of the same anchor charts every year, laminate your pieces. So like I laminated all these cards. That way I can tear them off and then I can make the chart again with my kiddos, since I just made samples for you guys. And I wanted to make sure it worked in sizing and all of that. But yeah, so if you do an anchor chart and you're going to use it again next year, like probably all of these you'll probably use pretty much every year. Just laminate the pieces and you can just tear them off the chart and you can reuse them, and it saves you ink, it saves you paper, and it saves if you're in a school district, it saves them money, or if you work for yourself or work in a place where you have to use your own ink, it saves you money. So laminate your pieces so you can use them again. So yeah, so you can print them off normal size, and these are 2 to a page. I wanted them big, that way if you're just posting 1 or 2. So you can also just post 1 or 2, like maybe you're doing ramps and you want them to compare and experiment and maybe measure. So you can just put up 3 based on what you have out at the science table. You don't have to have all of them out, especially if you have young 3s, and you have like maybe all young 3s, you don't have any older kids. Or like I have a multi-age class, so I have 3, 4, and 5s. So the olders kind of help out the youngers. So maybe you just want to put 3 cards out, and that's totally fine too. You don't have to put all of this out all the time. All right, so that's that chart. I also have another chart with vocabulary cards, and all the science packs will have vocabulary cards, and you can use them in different ways. And all of the things I'm saying are all in the science bundle. That way, like each each thing has a whole teacher directions page with a real picture of it. That way you have ideas on how to use it in your classroom. Okay, so I just made a chart with it. You can also just have out a couple, it's up to you. But these are kind of nice little vocabulary cards because some kiddos may not know what a magnifying glass is or a scale, or they may think a scale is just this one like at the grocery store. They may not know that that's a balance scale too. So there's a whole bunch of vocabulary cards you can use. Also, just put out a couple. So I made this little chart and then I just put Velcro dots on these. So that way you can change it out based on what you're doing. So maybe you want them to weigh something and then record it. So maybe that's what you want to put out. So you don't have to have all of them out. And like I said, this pack, you can use this pack a lot, like for so many themes, or maybe there's a theme that I don't have in the bundle or I don't have yet and you are doing it earlier than I had planned on making it. Totally bust out this pack and put out some of these things with the materials you need. Or maybe like if you do turkeys for Thanksgiving, put out all the turkey feathers and put out some of these, like a tool chart. And then I have some different science mats you could put out. So you can use this for so many themes. Yes, so those are the vocabulary cards for this science pack. And then I also have, I have a whole bunch of different, I call them like science mats. So they're kind of like a math mat, but they're for the science table. So there's some sorting boards, so you can just put them in the center and they can sort the different things. Like right now I have a tray of rocks out. And a lot of my wood trays are just from, oh look, I think this is from Melissa and Doug's stamp set. So you can use any tray for your materials. Just find a wooden tray from the old Melissa and Doug set. You can, I know like the dollar store has those small trays right now. Target has the bigger trays. You can use really any tray. I like to have it, just all the like materials in like a tray so that way they're not floating all over the table. But there's Sort It. There is also like an Examine It, so they can put it here, and then what a great visual for them to remember to use their magnifying glass to look at something closer. So there's an Examine It. There is also a Measure It, and then they can sort it between short and long, and then I have the different measuring tools, chains, tape measure, bears, a ruler, and cubes. And one thing I will say is my kids, they do use rulers even though they're 3, but I colored them, so it's kind of like a cube stick. Because when they measure, all they are is counting the color blocks, but they are still using a ruler. So that way when they go to kinder, or they're in 1st grade, I don't know when they use a ruler, but that way they'll know how to like line it up. They won't know how to use the numbers on the inside, but they'll at least know how to like line it up. Like if they're measuring something, they'll know to put it at the beginning so they can measure 1, 2, 3. It's 3 long. So super fun. So there's all the different measuring, and then they can sort between short and long. And I tried to make it so even though our kiddos can't read, they'll know to put like the little one here and the big ones here. And let's say you're doing measuring, why don't you go ahead and throw out some measuring books. I forgot, in the pack there is a book list of all the books I'm showing today. I got all of them from Amazon. But this one, these are like super old, but they're awesome. The Math Count series, like super old, y'all. But they're really great books. And they're more math, but science is a lot of math. So put those out. And then this one, Length and Distance. Here, I'll put it up close. That way you can see it. By Thomas and Heather Adamson. But it's super simple text, and it shows measuring with different things. Like there's using a tape measure, and then there's like a speedometer. So super simple for just right for our kiddos. And so we have the sorting, the measuring, the examining. And I also have some weighing mats. And I just got this scale from Amazon because I didn't have one of these. But I have one of these scales, kind of like a grocery store scale, and then I have my typical balance scale app. So you can use whichever one. And then I have Weigh It mat. I know some of you guys also have this mat. And then they can sort the items between if they're heavy or if they're light. And again, I tried to have those visuals at the top. And you can always do this for small group too. Give everybody a mat. And then you can also put the mats in a dry erase pocket. So then maybe they have to draw, like the big rock was heavy and then the little rock was small, or if you're doing shells or whatever, so that you can have them record data and just use the dry erase pockets. You can just print them off and use them as like a worksheet. If you want like a recording page, or maybe you want something for their portfolio, just print. If you're doing the Weigh It, this series also has How Do You Measure Weight book, and I love this. It literally has our kids scale in there, right? So it's awesome. But How Do You Weigh It? Again, this book is in there, but here it is if you want to, and it's, I'll add it to my Amazon list too. I forgot about food coloring. It will stain your table. Learned that the hard way. So make sure you test it, or I don't think liquid watercolor stains, but I would test a little drop on your table first, or like cover your science table with a like plastic tablecloth or something to make sure it doesn't get on there. And then there's a couple different ones. And then I also have some capacity mats. So they can just put the pom-poms on and they can see how many it takes to fill it up. And you can really use anything. I just, my idea was to use pom-poms. You could have them use cubes. You could have them use chains. But if they're used pom-poms, you can put out the tweezers to sneak in some fine motor. And scientists use tweezers a lot, so that's super fun. So there's the test tubes, and then just 2 different containers, and then there's some like cookie jars. So this would be fun, like if you're doing like a birthday theme, you can put out the cookie jars and put out, maybe you can call these sprinkles, and you can say which jar holds the most. So that's really fun. And then in the Math Count series, they have a capacity book. So I love this book too. Again, they're from the 80s, I think, but they're awesome. They keep reprinting them, so I love them. And there's also a patterns Math Counts capacity one, or Math Counts one in the series, sorry. So we have all those mats, and then I also have, I wanted them to try experimenting, so I have a time it. So I was thinking, what can they time? Well, they can build a ramp. So put out some ramp making materials, like just some blocks, and it doesn't have to be fancy. These are literally foam blocks, and just put out some pieces of cardboard. Super simple, nothing fancy. And they can time it and see if it goes fast or slow. You can also, and I do have visuals for these, build 2 ramps, see which one's faster. And you can have a stopwatch out if you think your kiddos, like kinder kiddos, probably would love having a stopwatch out in the science center. Super, super fun. So somebody asked, do I teach a lesson a day? And I don't. I'm not gonna lie, science always, I feel like, goes to the back burner, even in my classroom, because I feel like literacy is so important. But I do always have my science table set up, and we explore a lot of science during table time in the morning sometimes. I'll put out maybe like a whole bunch of cubes and science things, and maybe they measure it, or maybe put out these mats all around the table or with pairs, and they can do it. So I use a lot of those times, so I don't necessarily do a lot of science lessons during circle. I will say I throw them in. Usually I try and do like 1 or 2 a theme, and I do 2-week themes. So that's kind of how many I do. But you do what works for your kiddos and your classroom. So here's one that says test is to discover which ball rolls the fastest, and you can just throw a whole bunch of bowls in a cup, like just walk around your classroom and see what's round and have them roll it down the ramp. You can test to discover which object rolls the fastest, and here's some ideas for you. But just so they have a visual on what to do over there, and then they can time it, and you can put out a stopwatch. You don't have to put out a stopwatch. It's up to you. And then I did a fast like a jaguar, slow like a turtle. So yeah, and there's a clock or a stopwatch at the top. And then there also are parent notes, because we just want something to print and send home, right? We don't have to want to write. I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like I'm doing good to get out the newsletter. So you can just print this. It's a half sheet, so it's not overwhelming for the parent to read or do either, but it tells them what we're doing, and then what you can do at home, and then gives them a few vocabulary words. So again, just a little bit, so maybe they can actually follow through, because I feel like sometimes we expect parents to do so much at home, give them giant like homework things, and they just need to play with their kids, and they need to read with their kids. So this is something it gives them, like this one is be a scientist at home, go outside and examine the ground. What do you see? Do you see two things that are the same? Compare them and determine which is the biggest and which is the small. So that's something super simple that will take them 5-10 minutes that they can do, and it's not overwhelming. So again, these are just in there so that parents know, but they're not overwhelmed at the same time. All the writing pages. So I know a lot of you, we try and sneak, all of us really, try and sneak in literacy whenever we can. So I included discovery pages, so that way they can draw and write and communicate their thinking that way. So there's 3 different sheets. There's one sheet with 1 line. There's this one with 2 lines, and there's another one with that dotted, more kindergarten looking line. And there's some that say my discovery page, and then there's some that say my science journal. So there's both options for you. I call my science center discovery, so I've always said my discovery page. So, but you can have each kiddo have a science journal, and every kiddo doesn't have to have the same type of paper. So here's the other type of paper. But maybe some of your kiddos are 3, and maybe they're gonna have the sheet with the 1 line, and maybe your pre-K kiddos are gonna have it with 2 lines, or maybe your kinder and you want them to write on the dotted line. It's up to you. You can also do a class science journal binder. So if they do one during center time, you can plop it in the binder. Just if you 3-hole punch the pages before you put them out, it's super easy to pop in. Or you can just laminate it and do like just staple it at the top. You can do that too. So, and then if you do have like all your science journals, I love these little, what are they, book boxes or baskets? And you can just plop this in the back of your center. And that way, now that you can't see it, and you can just plop that in your center, and then they can grab their journal when it's time to do science, or when you're doing science centers. So, and you can totally use these for science centers too. And I think that is all of the Being a Scientist pack. And yeah, so I'm super excited about science. I actually love science, one of my favorite centers. So I'm really excited to do this pack for you guys and for my kiddos too. Everything that I showed you is all in the Being a Scientist pack, ready for you in my TPT store, and it has tons of pictures of it in action. Alrighty, well, if you guys have more questions, either pop them in here and I can answer them, or hop over to the group and we can keep talking over there. You guys have a fabulous day.